On this date today, we gather here in this space to conduct the business of the city of Statesboro for the good of all of its inhabitants. Before we begin that, I'd like to offer a prayer. I tell you, before we pray, I pray for myself and any who might need it. Let us pray. From arrogance, pompousness, and from thinking ourselves more important than we are, may some saving sense of humor liberate us. For allowing ourselves to ridicule the faith of others, may we be forgiven. From making war and calling it peace, special privilege and calling it justice, indifference and calling it tolerance, pollution and calling it progress, may we be cured. For telling ourselves and others that evil is inevitable while good is impossible, may we stand corrected. Dear God, of our mixed up, tragic, aspiring, doubting, and changeable lives, help us to be as good as in our hearts we have always wanted to be. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move down to agenda item 3, recognitions and public presentations. Do we have any recognitions or public presentations, Leah?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, we'll move down to agenda item 4, which is public comments. Do we have any public comments, Leah?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, you sure?
That'll be at the end of the meeting,
Okay.
so the second one.
Okay, all right, good deal. All right, we'll move down to agenda item 5, which is consideration of a motion to approve the consent agenda. Line item A is approval of minutes for July the 21st, work session minutes, July 21st, council minutes, and July 21st, executive session minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a
So moved.
second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move down to agenda item 6, which is a second reading and consideration of a motion to approve ordinance 2020-06, a ordinance revising city ordinance 2-2.4 regarding ordinance revision procedure before mayor and council. Okay,
Mayor and Council, this is the second reading of ordinance 2-2.4, which is the ordinance revision procedure ordinance. Direction was made under the existing version of 224 for a first reading to be held. The direction was given on June 16th. The first reading was held on July 21st. It passed 4-1. This revision would allow the mayor, 2 council members, or the city manager to direct city attorney to produce ordinance revision drafts for mayor and council review at work sessions. The procedure as far as approval of the first reading and ordinance in action would remain the same. It just changes the directive to draft the first reading.
okay. Any conversation with council? Any discussion?
Is this us? The other two?
Yeah, we got one there, one not here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be moving, so.
Yeah, she's
Right.
not, yeah, it's just a photo,
Okay.
yeah. With that being said, any discussion by council? All right, with no further discussion by council, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, all those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, all right. Let's show that agenda item 6 has passed. We'll move down to agenda item 3, which is consideration of a motion to approve resolution 2020-23, a resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Statesboro to enter into a grant agreement with the state of Georgia in order to access coronavirus relief funds. There is a presentation on this from Mr. Penny, who will give us some insight.
Mayor and members of the council, this morning, what you have before you is the resolution, and we're seeking your approval. The mayor has already executed the agreement. However, the state does require a resolution to solidify this grant process. But what I wanted to do this morning, I just wanted to walk through the CARES Act funding. The pandemic has been really different for our community, our state, our country. And it's impacted us all in different ways. I keep getting fogged up. I hope I can see here. But one of the things that happened, at least I think three actions have been taken by the federal government. One of the first actions that was taken was to provide relief for states. And in our case, Georgia received $4.1 billion. And the largest cities received allocation. Those were cities above 500,000 people. We did not receive any, but in Georgia, Cobb, DeKalb County, Fulton, and Gwinnett all got direct allocation from the feds.
Okay.
So out of that $4.1 billion, the state share is $2.8 billion. And the direct local share for those 4 counties was $614 million. What our state decided to do was to share $1.2 billion with the counties and with the cities. $600 million for cities, $600 million for counties. So and that amount was divided by cities and counties, and the way they allocated it, what they said is phase 1 would be 30% funding, phase 2 would be 35% funding, and phase 3 would be 35% funding. Make sure, I'm sorry.
You might have to click on the screen and then
No, I got it, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So what happens is, in Statesboro situation, our total funding out of that $600 million is $5.7 million. Phase 1 funding is $1.7 million. So what the state decided to do is, they advanced us $517,520. That's in the bank. That was in the bank as of last Friday because the mayor executed the agreement, so they advanced us to $500,000. The only issue is that $1.7 million has to be committed by September 1st, 2020. And the expenses must all be COVID-related expenses. And so one of the things that we recommend to you, some of the COVID expenses originally had been thought about to be FEMA, to go through FEMA to recover those funds. And what I would recommend is we not do that. Let's just take the CARES Act funds and not look to FEMA for reimbursement, because that just opens up a whole nother can of stuff. So the way they dispense that fund, first thing I would say is, how in the world we're gonna be able to spend $1.7 million between now and September 1st? So what they allow us to do, there's some things that they will allow us to do to make that happen. So for administrative convenience, they will allow us to claim public safety, public works expenses from March 1st through December 30th. Because basically, public safety employees, police, fire, public works, public utility folks, anytime they go on a call, they're subject to interact with someone that might have COVID-19. And so when they allow us to do that, from March 1st through July 31, we have incurred expenses of $3.6 million. So from August 1st through December 31st, we will incur another $3.6 million. Thus, that brings our expenditures to $7.2 million. They're gonna give us $5.7 million, okay? So we should not have a problem meeting the September 1st because we've already incurred $3 million in expenses. However, when I met with staff, we talked about things that we needed to do as a result of addressing COVID. First, we look at, we've already spent $122,000 in equipment that we purchased, supplies that we purchased, cleaning, all kinds of things that we've done in dealing with, when we were doing when we were sending folks out to make sure people were social distancing, when we had the shelter in place, those costs are all in there. But we also identified other purchases that we believe would be important for us going forward, because we have no idea that this pandemic is gonna be over by December 31st, 2020. In actuality, I think it's gonna be December 31st, 2021. However, so we had looking at some proposed purchases of about $1 million, so $1,064,000. Then you established the loan loss reserve. We could use these funds instead of using the enterprise, thank you, man, enterprise funds. We can use $250,000 out of these funds to replace that. That's an eligible expense. Then we talk about other things that we can do in the community to help folks. People have been impacted. Some people may have issues with rent. Some people may have issues with mortgages. And what we set aside, what we proposed is set aside about $200,000 for rental mortgage assistance. Now, we don't have the infrastructure to administer that. We would look to some agencies to do that for us. Then we looked at another $200,000 for small business assistance. We used the big to distribute $28,000. More than likely, we would talk to them again, set up parameters to be able to distribute these funds to small businesses. And then the other piece is utility assistance. We can't just simply take the money and pay someone's utility bill. They would need to go through an agency to qualify, because what the feds don't want us to do is say, okay, this is a way just to replace some revenues that we're not gonna recover. So in this case, we would have to work with an agency, again, that would qualify folks to receive utility assistance. And then the other thing that I listed and I would just recommend to council is, throughout this pandemic, your folks have done outstanding work. We never closed City Hall. Police, fire, public works, all those folks worked throughout the pandemic. Even though we had City Hall closed, some folks had to work from home, but the majority of the folks came to work every day. And so what I would recommend is that we utilize some of these funds to provide some hazardous duty pay. The folks that are eligible under this program would only be public safety and public works. However, I would recommend to you that we provide something to all our employees, because we have sufficient funds to ensure that all our employees are rewarded for the work that they did. So if you look at those expenditures, you're talking about $2.2 million that would come out of that $5.7 million. What that does is it leaves a reserve of about $3.5 million. And that's good for the city to have those funds to be in reserve, because again, we don't know how long this pandemic is gonna last. The other thing we don't know is if cities will get anything in the next allocation of federal funds that might come down. So having these funds will be a great benefit, and we're very appreciative to the state for providing us this share of funds. Some of the communities in like Cobb County and DeKalb County, they're dependent upon the counties being willing to share. And in this case, we're very fortunate. So I'm not gonna go through all these eligible expenses, but you can see medical expenses, public health expenses, payroll expenses for public safety and public health. These are eligible expenditures under the program. And then you can talk about actions to facilitate compliance with public health measures, and then economic support, talk about food securities, housing securities, business and nonprofit support. Talk about things that are not eligible. And I want to appreciate Tom Couch at the county because I'm using some of his slides here. But you see the things that are not. Damages covered by insurance would not be eligible. Severance pay would not be eligible. Legal settlements, reimbursement for donated items or services, they're not eligible. So when you look at Bullock County and you look at Statesboro, you will see Bullock County is set to receive $7.6 million. And then you see Statesboro at the bottom there, and we're set to receive $5.7 million. And so I would recommend to the city council that you approve the resolution for us to receive these funds, and we will provide you more updates as we work out all the details for how we would expend and implement those proposed uses of funds that I laid out to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Payne. Any discussion or questions by council?
I have a question, how do they, what formula did they use to distribute it from?
Population.
Population?
Per capita.
So my understanding is this has already been executed, we're just okaying it after the fact because you had to ask for the money quickly to meet the guidelines.
Yeah, we had to ask for the money quickly. They authorized, they asked for the mayor to sign the document. If we had to wait till today, we would still get it, but it would throw us behind. And so, they recognized that many cities would go ahead and get their mayor to execute it, and then they would come along and sign it. Now, I don't know how many cities would not want to receive these funds, but as of last week, before the mayor signed his, I think 189 cities had already signed dollars throughout the state. And so, like I said, I kept checking, and on Friday afternoon, our $500,000 was sitting in the bank.
So my understanding, I know y'all have researched this and know more about it than I do, but my understanding was that you could not use the CARES money for things that were already in the budget. So we can't use it to pay our police force or the firefighters unless it's the extra things they did for COVID. Is that not
That's
right?
not correct. That's not.
So we can use it for normal budget?
We can. Again, they recognize that in order to comply in the guidelines, there's a piece called for administrative convenience. They would allow us to use these funds for public safety employees, for their salaries, from March 1st through the end of December. Again, because the work they do is very different from what they would do on a daily basis. And then the other piece that they were worried about is people would have to figure a way to expend these funds, because we wouldn't want to leave $5.7 million sitting on the table. So in this case, they gave us an out to help us qualify. But it's in the guidelines that we can, those public safety expenses can be used to qualify. And so if it's a problem, they'll tell us when we go for our reimbursement. But everyone is interpreting the same interpretation from Bullock County. In Tom's presentation, right up front, they will incur $9 million worth of expenses by using that criteria. So we're only complying with what other folks are doing, and it is a lot.
Thank you. So they've already put that first chunk in the bank, the 30%, and then the rest of it we have to commit to by the end of this month, not necessarily spend, but decide where it's going. Did I understand that right?
What they put in the budget, what they put in the bank is $517,000. That's a third of the 1.7. So what we will simply do is ask for reimbursement based upon our incurred expenses. Again, we have incurred over $3 million, so we will request the balance of the 1.7. So that $1.2 million, we would just request reimbursement, and we will comply by September 1st. In order to get the balance of the money, you have to comply with the expenditure by September 1st. We should have no problem doing that.
Thank you.
Any
Mr.
further
Benny, I
questions?
have a question.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page because the phone was going out a little bit.
Okay.
This money that we are getting, we would not have to pay this money back, correct?
Not unless we don't spend it the right way. We should not have, it is a grant.
Okay.
It is a grant.
I just wanted to make sure that it was a grant.
But I do want to just say this to council. Unless for some reason the state should change its priorities, and that agreement does give them an opportunity to increase the grant, or they could decrease the grant. But at this point, we don't have any indication that they, for some reason, would come back and reclaim any of those funds. However, I would say this is Charles's opinion. If for some reason we saw the feds come in and decide they're gonna fund cities directly, they might decide that don't take the state money, you just use the money that's coming from the feds. But right now, we don't have any indication that the feds are gonna fund cities directly other than those cities they've already funded. So we have about a 5-month period in order to get these funds. But we still have to be very cautious about the way we expend the funds, just in case for some reason the state, they give us this 30%, and then we get started on the next 35%, and then something happens that they need to change their priorities. So we're prayerful that we're gonna get the full $5.7 million. Okay?
Any further discussion by council? All right, seeing that there's none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, let's show that agenda item 7 has passed. We'll move down to agenda item 8, which is consideration of a motion to approve the renewal of the city of Statesboro property casualty and workers' compensation insurance as follows, per the recommendation of our insurance broker, Glenn Davis and Associates. Mr. Penny.
Mayor and members of the council, our insurances are good through August the 15th. And so what you have before you today is a recommendation, again, as the mayor laid out, to approve the renewal of our property casualty insurance with the traveler's insurance, the workers' compensation with Bitco Insurance, the fire department property insurance with VFIS, and cybersecurity with BCS Insurance. For the most part, there are modest increases in the premiums, but we recommend to you that you approve the placement of this insurance by Glenn Davis and Associates.
Any discussion by council? All right, seeing that there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, let's show that agenda item 8 has passed. We'll move down to agenda item 9. Consideration of contract with Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions Incorporated to provide design and environmental services to propose upgrades at Whittemore and Grady Street Parks. Mr. Penny.
Mayor and members of the council, this has been a discussion we've had for, I've been here a little over a year, when we've been talking about the parks, and the county incurred the cost. They engaged Woods to do the sketch plan, and at the last work session, I recommended to you that, and I asked you for permission to get a proposal from Woods to move forward with the design for the improvements at Grady Street and Louetta Moore. And so what they propose is to do all of that work for $226,300. Couple of things that may be a little bit different. First off, these expenses are in the estimate. That $3.9 million that I was talking, is in the estimate. And when you look at what they propose, the cost for Louetta Moore, the cost for Grady Street. Grady Street, the fee for Grady Street is a little bit less than what was in the estimate. The The fee for, Louetta Moore is a little bit higher, but not anything that caused me any great concern. But there are a couple of things that are different. First off, when we had a presentation at a work session about Louetta Moore, one of the things that they included in this proposal was 2 tennis courts. And from our discussion, unless y'all change your mind, the discussion was to take the tennis courts away so we would have more green space. And so, in my discussion with them is that we're gonna wanna remove the tennis courts from the Louetta Moore site. The other thing is, there was a swimming pool in, they showed it 2 ways. I asked them to show it with an expanded spray ground. And so they showed, when we did the virtual, town hall on these plans, they showed it with the expanded spray ground, they showed it with a therapeutic pool. And in this proposal, they excluded the pool. And I said, now, and I told them, I said, I think we both gonna get run out of town if we don't put that pool back. And so they misunderstood me. So there's not gonna be a change in the fee, but unless council doesn't want the pool will go back in and the fee should be the same. And when this is very preliminary. As we're working with staff, we'll see things, we'll have time to do upgrades, but in the costs that were included in the estimate, they had like a 20% contingency, which is in most projects, that's pretty high. But that's a good thing for us. And while we're looking at the plans, if we can upgrade things in the park, and when you're doing a renovation, all kinds of things do happen. And so what I'm asking you to do today is to approve the agreement. However, before the mayor signs it, I want to finalize everything with Wood for this project. But the fee should still be the same, but we'll get the mayor to sign it after we have all the revisions in the document, if council is so inclined to do so. There's expenses of about $2,100 that they may incur, and that's a part of the fee as well. That's in addition to the $226,000.
Okay. Any discussion by council?
So it's in addition to the 226, but it's included in the 3 whatever million overall?
Yeah.
Okay, and there was one place where they were excluding irrigation. Did you find where I asked about that, and is that gonna go back in?
Again, as we are looking at it, we can talk about them including that, and that can be a part of that discussion that we have when we sit down with Wood and Associates to talk about these changes. But again, we should be able to, again, if we take the tennis courts out, in the estimate, that's $175,000. So I should be able to get some irrigation, and I should be able to get some upgrades on some other things at the park by taking the tennis courts out.
So basically, we're endorsing, let's move ahead, tell them to do the next step, but you're aware of these other concerns and gonna get them into the negotiation
Yes,
process.
yes. And again, the council will get another shot at this. This is the beginning. But they recognize that the hope is, if everything goes okay, that these improvements can be done for the spring, summer of 2021. What you will have when this is done, you will have construction drawings that we can then bid the project to, and then, and also get financing for. So there are a number of things that have to go on. There's a lot of work, so you're talking about a 90-day period of doing all this work. There's soil borings, all kinds of things that need to be done in order before the project moves forward. But I'm satisfied. I had Jason look at the project as well, and I believe working with the county and the consultants that we have, we can get a good job done at both parts. And I think we'll all be well pleased when it's all said and done.
And so the payment for this comes out of money we've already got, SPOS funds.
It would
not
have to come
having
out of
finance.
SPOS funds.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions by council?
When do we need to decide whether or not, keep that swimming pool? We don't need to do it today, do we?
No.
Well, unless y'all want it out.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
It's been a long
Don't do
time.
that.
What year was that? That pool?
Pastor Jones been working on this for years.
Don't do
Yeah.
that. Please don't take it out.
Yeah.
Now, unless you want it out.
I'm trying to, well, he knows we're gonna take care of it for him.
Yeah,
Leave the pool
exactly.
in.
Yeah, this is, I'm trying to think, I'm part of that graduating class where, one of my classmates, Chris, he was one of the little boys that died, in that pool that was over there, and I think we was going to third grade that year. But with that being said, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
thank you. All right, we'll move down to agenda item 10, which is consideration of a motion to award contract to Timber Near Construction LLC in the amount of $134,670.50 for sidewalk improvements to West Jones Avenue with approval to spend up to $135,750 for additional work based on contractor's unit bid price. This project is paid from 2018 SPOS funds. Mr. Penny.
Mayor, members of the council, I really can't add anything. The only thing, whenever I look at the bids, there was a big difference for the proposal. His bid's $134,000 to get this project done, and the highest one was $454,000. So I recommend we award it to Lanier.
Okay. Any discussion by council? All right, seeing that there's no discussion by council, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's show that agenda item 10 has passed. We'll move down to agenda item 11, discussion regarding the city of Statesboro's participation in GMA's 2020 Census Challenge. Mr. Penny.
Mayor, everyone knows that this is a year of the census, and the census is really critical for every community across the country. The census will determine whether you get additional congressional seats or whether you lose congressional seats. It also can determine whether you get funds that are distributed based on population. So GMA is putting a push on trying to get a good response rate for the census. And so what we want to do is just recommend that the city and get your endorsement to be a part of the 2020 Census Challenge that GMA is doing. They will provide, what we will do is we will use a lot of like website information that they have available. We'll show it on our website to try to help people have a good response rate. I will use this opportunity to simply say, right now, Statesboro is not doing good as far as the census is concerned. Our return rate right now is at 38.1%. That's not good. But part of that is the students have been gone since April. And in our population count, the students are a part of that population count. To get to that 32,000 number that they used to determine that we were gonna get $5.7 million, we've got to get those numbers back up, because if it was 10,000, those numbers would be way down.
Yeah.
And so we're doing a number of things, and this Thursday, the mayor, a lady from Atlanta, will be on a Facebook Live talking about the importance. People still have time to call in or go online and get counted, but we want to be a part of this effort to get everybody in Statesboro counted. So we recommend that we participate with GMA.
All right, and does this need to be approved?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, at this time, I'd like to use a point of privilege and move forward to agenda item 13, city manager's comments. Check your text messages.
Mayor and council, I just wanted to to check in with y'all. I know it seems like we just did a city council retreat back in March, and then when we got back, the pandemic broke out. But one of the things that we did, we had a representative from the Carl Vinson Institute of Government that facilitated our retreat. And so they'd like to be a part of the retreat process again next year. And so I gave you 2 dates in March, I think March 5th and 6th and March 12th and 13th. And so I need to be able to release one of those dates for the School of Government because somebody else might need it. And then I also want to put this caveat in, as we're talking about our retreat. Right now, we're planning for a retreat. But if things stay the same, we have to determine whether we can go on a retreat. So right now, we're just getting it on the calendar for March of 2021. And so I just need for council to give me an indication. Councilman William said the 13th. Councilman Mack said either day. And so if y'all can give me, I think Ms. Barr said the 12th and the 13th.
It's a preference, but I can do either if the first one's on what the works.
I'm good with it. I'm good with whatever pleases council.
Does the first one work for you, John?
Yes, ma'am.
First one work for you, Paulette?
So what day we wanna do?
Didn't somebody say they could only do the first one, the 5th?
Yeah,
No one said that.
I
No,
did
no.
I
Mr.
put down the 5th.
She says she preferred the 5th or the 6th. Mr. Williams said the 13th. So y'all just.
I can be a team player.
Thank you,
That's
Paulette.
fine.
So it sounds like the second day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's 13th, 12th and 13th.
And then we'll talk about where we might do the retreat, but for right now, we just get it on their calendar. Like
Okay.
how again, we come back and do it for you again.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we move down to agenda item 14, still following the point of privilege for public comments. Leah?
We do have a public comment from Reed Durr. He would like to speak about the proposed Article 80, the discrimination ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you, City Council, for allowing me to come. My name is Reed Durr, and I'm speaking as a member of Trinity Presbyterian Church and for my pastor who had to be at an unfortunate family occurrence this morning. And believe it or not, I'm smiling behind this mask. Hard to see, right? And forgive me if I read, just because I want to say it correctly. You have to understand that we at Trinity favor full rights for all kinds of people. No question about that, as mentioned, of course, in the ordinance. However, we believe that City Council ought to modify the discrimination ordinance 80 specifically in the light of the First Amendment rights that we have as Americans, especially freedom of religion and freedom for religious believers to practice as they will. We think the ordinance ought to be more specific in protecting churches and allied ministries, whether those be schools, daycare centers, drug rehab centers, homeless shelters, you name it, especially as they hire practitioners of a certain religious faith. The ordinance, we think, also ought to protect the consciences of church members in particular and religious practitioners from being forced against conscience, and that's the key thing, against conscience, to favor, advertise, or advance or advocate political, social, or religious positions which they, in faith and good conscience, oppose. We suggest that council, shall we say, postpone decision on this and take more time for public input and comment on these resolutions. I'm not sure what I dropped. So much for my statement. Thank you for hearing my concern.
As a point of clarity,
Sure.
you're saying protect churches. How does this not protect churches? I'm really not understanding what you're saying. Protecting churches.
conscience, in advertising. Can you give us
Yeah.
an example of, something that may have happened that you can think of?
Well, let me, notice, I think I mentioned two things. We think the ordinance ought to more specifically protect churches and allied ministries. Also, the ordinance ought to protect the consciences of religious practitioners in certain cases. I have a draft of one that addresses the first point there, and it's more specific in terms of what kinds of people it's concerned, particularly with hiring. For example, a proposal would be that under its 80-2F is the one that I have modifications here for. Nothing in this ordinance shall prohibit a religious organization from restricting the selection of persons for employment, that is, to perform work connected with the performance of religious activities by the religious organization. Anyway, it shouldn't restrict to those. It should restrict it to those who are in agreement and comply with the founding principles and beliefs of the organization. That's the big shift there, okay, in terms of adding more specific language. That religious organizations ought to be able to hire those who are in agreement and comply with the founding principles and beliefs of the organization, including doctrinal statements, confessions of faith, and so on. Nor shall this ordinance prohibit religious organization from limiting its non-commercial accommodations, advantages, facilities, membership, and privileges to persons who are in agreement and comply with the founding principles and beliefs of the organization, including doctrinal statements and confessions. In other words, the issue is on what basis may religious organizations freely hire those who are sympathetic with and comply with the beliefs of that organization. That's the more specific language that we've added there. And I have copies of this. I emailed it to you all last night. You may not have seen it, but I also have paper copies here if you want it right now.
Yeah, I like a paper copy.
If you give it to me, I'll.
Oh, okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Okay, and protect the conscience.
Yes.
I'm gonna be honest with you, and I want to, I'm very direct.
Thank you, sir.
The same conscience and protections was offered against African Americans at one point because of the church. And so I'm very concerned about this because as a Christian man, my faith will not allow me to discriminate against anyone. And that's what it kind of sounds like you're asking. And I'm very concerned about that because my faith teaches me as a Christian, and it's summed up in a profound question where it says, how can you love me whom you have never seen and not love your brother whom you see every day? And so as a Christian, I am a little perplexed about this position because my faith and supposedly your faith is the same. And so I'm a little bit concerned about that because the same doctrine that you're looking for us to protect is the same doctrine that enslaves people that look like me.
I would disagree with that. I don't.
That's absolutely true.
Christian doctrine.
And so
Never enslaved
the
anyone.
Bible talks about slaves being good and loyal to their masters. And that doctrine was used to keep 4 million people enslaved in this country. And so what I'm saying is that if we're going to be a land of the free, then that freedom has to be for everyone. And who a person chooses to love, at the end of the day, that's none of any of our business. That's none of our business, regardless of our faith, regardless of our political views, any of that. Who two consenting adults choose to love is none of our business. And so what goes on in their bedroom is that's what goes on in their bedroom. I'm very concerned, and I'm saying this with all due respect, but I'm very concerned because our nation is being divided based on many things that really should not concern us. And so And so that's what I'm very concerned about. And it's kind of like people that's in leadership, we have to be that good shepherd that even if one sheep goes astray, we go after that sheep. So I'm very concerned about that. Ultimately, council has the vote on this, but I just fundamentally believe that we gotta work to save everybody. And I think that no one religious preference should take precedence over another. Because at the end of the day, there's only one God. And so I'm very concerned about that. I appreciate you coming forward. We will meet again. And I invite you guys to come and be a part of that conversation because we do want to create something, draft something that's going to be for everyone and everyone gets on the same page. But in no shape, form, or fashion is this I'm kind of confused because this is not a attack on the church, but it is more or less us honoring that separation of church and state. And us honoring the fact that we're supposed to be a nation of freedom and liberties for all people. And so I'm very concerned about that. So with that being said, that's my take on it. But again, we can definitely have, council if they want to chime in, or definitely for you to come to the next meeting, and so that you can really get more insight about what's really being discussed in these conversations. And then we can kind of go from there. Let me ask you, if you don't mind me asking, we've been doing this in work session, in our work sessions, or not work sessions, well, work sessions and committee sessions. If you just feel free to come to those so that we can have open dialogue in regards to that, okay?
Well, let me know when.
Yeah, there's gonna be another one borough meeting, that's gonna be Tuesday, the 11th at 5:30.
And it's on Zoom.
Yeah, it's gonna be via Zoom, so you're more than welcome to come and be a part of that, just to be a part of our work session. That would be on, what's the date on that work session, the 18th? The 18th, that work session, depending on the length, would be at 3:30 or 4 o'clock. We invite you to be a part of the conversation because I think that maybe there's been some misnomers that's been thrown out in regards to what this legislation is about. And I think that it may not, I think there's a call for concern where it should not be. So, and we're not going to the church and saying, hey, church, you got to hire this. That's not what's happening. What's happening is you still have full discretion. It's just like me hiring a team player with the organization I work for. I want to make sure they dedicated to that organization. So you still have those kind of freedoms and things of that nature. But at the same time, there are, federal laws that protect individuals as far as the EEOC and things of that nature. So those things are already in place at the federal level. So I think that there may be some misnomers about what we're doing locally that may be causing concern. So I invite you to be a part of that conversation. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Najee, I just want to say too that I don't believe in any type of discrimination on any boards, but in the same token, I would like to hear more of what you have to say because I think it's only right to hear what you have to say when we're making these certain ordinances. So I do encourage you, please come and be a part.
Yeah.
My brother is a pastor.
Yeah.
So it's big for me. So I really want to hear what you have to say as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we encourage you to come because I think it's, and that's what, in the 2.5 years that I've been here, I'll tell you that a lot of times people come into this space because they've been told something that's just simply not true, or they've been led to believe, or something. Even when COVID started, they would lead you to believe that, we were trying to destroy all small business instead of saving life within the community. And now we see that in hindsight, this is what we thought it was. But with that being said, we want you to come, be a part of that conversation so that we can all, so we can all get a better understanding of what we're doing. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And what was your last name? How you spell it? Durr?
D-E-R-R.
D-E-R-R. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We appreciate it. Okay. All right, we'll move to, we'll go back as a point of privilege to agenda item 14, others, business for city council. Is there any business by city council?
I have something I'd like to share, please.
Okay.
I'm very pleased that under the leadership of Mayor McCollar and with the support of the county and city staff, the COVID task force has passed out 45,000 masks to people in Bullock County. The community group that's working with the task force to do that is known as Squashing the Spread Bullock. You can find us on Facebook if you haven't already supported it. One of the last projects is the sign that's available. It's got a picture of a squash wearing a mask, just to get people's attention. And it says, "Thanks for wearing a mask. If you need one, just ask us." And so these signs are available. If you'd like to take one with you, I have several in my car to put up at your office or business. We're doing everything we can legally to try to help people in Bullock County practice good, safe health behaviors in order to contain this the best we can. I know we're all concerned with kids going back to school, with students arriving. It's a hard road, guys. It's going to get worse before it gets better. So let's all do all we can to protect ourselves and our neighbors. And I'm happy to share these if somebody would like one to take with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Vaughn. And again, I can't say enough thanks for what that group of individuals has done. They're well beyond 40,000 masks distributed within this community. So they are really working extremely hard. Any other business by city council? Okay. I do have one piece of business for city council. I asked for a resolution to be prepared. I tried to reach out to everybody this morning. I know I gave you a
I
call.
apologize, I was upstairs talking to someone.
That's okay, you taking care of business. Exactly. But the reason why I was reaching out, just to want everyone to know is that I asked the staff to prepare a resolution. And I want to bring that before council for discussion, and then possible vote. As you know, today our flags fly at half staff, because we lost a giant within our community, in Coach Lee Hill. Lee Hill was near and dear to so many people, within our community. He taught at Statesboro High from 1978 until his death, basically. And that is, I think, what, 44 years of young people. And I can't say what he's meant to our community. So we lost a major giant, and we lost this giant due to COVID-19. And what I want to tell you guys is that COVID-19 is very serious. It is robbing us of good people within our community. Wear your mask. Don't get caught up in the politics of it. Doctors been wearing masks in front of us for a very long time. Don't get caught up in the CDC is this, the WHO is that. Until this pandemic hit, we relied on the CDC. We relied on the World Health Organization to give us accurate information. But I say all of that to say this, is that I want to pay tribute to Coach Lee Hill, and I'm hoping that the council can support us in this. And how I want to pay tribute to Coach Lee Hill is renaming Lester Road to Coach Lee Hill Boulevard. That man spent 44 years being a mentor, a father figure, and a shaper of generation after generation, class after class, that came through those doors. And I just think it's befitting for us to embody that legacy in a way that we can really, really show him the respect that he deserves. So I want to open it up to council for conversation, and see if we can get any form of feedback in regards to that.
How many years did he coach? All 44?
44.
How many?
His
how
first
many-
team was 1978.
How many state championships?
Yeah, he was in one, he won one, was a runner-up in one, he was in 4 or more, Final Fours, but he's the winningest coach in Georgia history, right here in Statesboro, Georgia. So, and that's, you know, not the winningest coach in Bullock County history, but the winningest coach in the state of Georgia history. So, my hope is that, we can rename that section where that high school, that legendary high school sits, and name that road after Coach Hill. So I wanna check, are there any comments for, council, any input?
So, I did not know Mr. Hill, but I am reading on Facebook and hearing from lots of people about what a wonderful person he was. And I think he's probably well deserving of the honor that the mayor's proposing. I have no objection to it specifically, but my concern is that I would like us to do things quickly without folks having an opportunity for some input. I did not remember where the name Lester Road came from, so I called a friend who knows more history than I do, who told me it was a farmer who lived on that land and was a prominent Bullock County citizen, Dan Lester. I have no idea, I really don't know, I don't object to honoring the coach, but I'm a little concerned about something happening this quickly without folks who may have very strong feelings about it having an opportunity to participate in the conversation.
And if we were to change the name and we vote on it, I would love to see some of his players, students, family, everybody come in so they can.
Everybody can't come in.
Well, but at least have it advertised so people can watch on TV.
I know Coach Hill, and he was a very honorable man, and he loved basketball. And if you were on his team, you were gonna put in the hard work, and I just think that just exemplifies the city of Statesboro, that if you're on this team, we gotta put in the hard work to make the systems work properly. So I'm all for renaming the Lester Road Boulevard, Lester Road to, Coach Lee Hill Boulevard, because I know the work that he put in. And I understand that you don't know him that very well, and I understand where you're coming from, needing more time. I concur with that, but I know the man, and I get teary-eyed up here because.
I know, I'm very emotional, about Lee Hill.
Ms. Venus, you have an opinion?
I think that it is a good idea to change it. I did not know Coach Hill, but I do see people on Facebook, and I see that he had a very big impact.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't aware that Lester Road was named after somebody else, so Sherry just said it, so that is interesting, but I am in favor of naming it Coach Hill Boulevard.
So is it possible that we could do something like we do with zoning variance requests, where we put a sign on Lester Road and people have 2 weeks to register any concerns or whatever? I mean, what is the process? Is there a process?
The process is that we can vote on it.
I realize that's available to us. Is there another process available?
Well, if it came from the grassroots level, then people will have to go out and go door to door, and to get a petition signed, and then the petition will have to come to us. But on Lester Road, it's not like it's a neighborhood, it's like apartments that's along there. So it's not like it's a neighborhood that's there, it's a transient population that stays there. So they may be there 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then they move to another area, because it's just apartment complexes that's along there.
Thank you.
All right. So with that said, I do want to bring it to a vote. And what is that? Will you read the verbiage for the resolution?
Right, and pursuant to City Ordinance 58-9, Mayor and Council hereby resolve to rename Lester Road, particularly the stretch between North Side and East Main, as Coach Lee Hill Boulevard, retaining the street numbering that is now in place. Lee Hill Drive, as it runs off Denmark, Road will be renamed Lester Drive. And I will have, and if upon council approval, I will prepare the written resolution for mayor's signature.
Okay. If we will, let's amend that to take out the renaming of the space over there beside the Boys and Girls Club. And then we will deal with that at a later point. Yeah. Okay. Any question or comment about the resolution?
You're about to call this for a vote?
Yeah.
I agree with, Councilwoman Barr, even though I know he just died, and he's dear to my heart too, he pounded me in '87. But I love him for it.
I think you
I learned a little bit, but, just like she said, this is, and we don't have one councilman here, I would just like to have more input on it, which I know is all gonna be positive. I can't think of anybody who would say anything negative, but,
Yeah.
I'll have to vote no,
That's fine.
since it just
That's
popped up.
absolutely fine. Yeah.
But I don't wanna have to do that.
Yeah, it's absolutely. But I just feel like I just feel that sometimes leadership has to lead from the front. And Coach Hill, he's deserving of it.
Oh, absolutely.
So, so let's put it to a vote. If it passes, pass. If it don't, it don't. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the resolution, as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, all right, seeing that it is a tie, I vote in the affirmative, so it passes 3-2. All right, we'll move down to agenda item 15, is there a consideration of a motion, to enter into executive session? No? Okay, all right, seeing that it is not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?